and I'll fight it all the way. I notice a lot of the senators are trying to say respectfully they're blaming it on me. I said, that's okay. Please blame it on me. Please. The House, as you know, the Speaker, who's, by the way, I think he's going to prove to be a very good Speaker. It's tough when you have a very small majority. Very tough. Mike Johnson, Speaker, he just said it's dead on arrival in the House. It's dead on arrival.
And while Joe Biden and extreme Democrats push non-starter legislation that will only worsen the crisis at our border, House Republicans have already passed H.R. 2, the strongest border package ever. And this week we will vote to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for his willful and systemic refusal to enforce our immigration laws and breach of public trust. With that,
doing nothing is not an option. Republicans have to decide. For years, they said they want to secure the border. Now they have the strongest border bill this country has ever seen. We're seeing statements about how many oppose the bill now. Look, I understand the former president is desperately trying to stop this bill because he's not interested in solving the border problem. He wants a political issue to run against me on. They've all but said that across the board. No one really denies that I'm aware of. The American people want a solution that puts an end to the empty political rhetoric, which has failed to do anything for so long. We have to get the resources to the border to get the job done. So Republicans have to decide, who do they serve? Donald Trump or the American people? Are they here to solve problems?
The Border Patrol Union has come out and said the bill is better than the status quo. Does that affect your thinking on this?
Well, I think it does have something to do with the pay structure that's in the bill. I understand that they're desperate for measures that will assist.
A lot of Republicans are against it because Donald Trump is against it. But here's the problem for you guys. The Border Patrol Union came out and the acting CBP chief both came out and said it's not perfect, but this is the best thing we've seen in decades. So are Republicans going to say that the Border Patrol Union and the acting CBP chief are wrong?
Well, look, they can have their perspective, Steve, and we've got a lot of respect.
It's their jobs, Tom.
Well, and it's our job.
Border never closes. If this bill reaches the House, it will be dead on arrival. Your thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, he would step out and be able to say that right away before, obviously, he had had a chance to be able to read it as well and to be able to go through it. The key aspect of this, again, is are we as Republicans going to have press conferences and complain the border's bad and then intentionally leave it open? After the worst month in American history in December, now we've got to actually determine, are we going to just complain about things, or are we going to actually address and to change as many things as we can? If we have the shot, and it's amazing to me, if I go back 2 months ago and say we had the shot under a Democrat president to dramatically increase detention beds, deportation flights, lock down the border, to be able to change the asylum laws, right, to be able to accelerate the process, no one would have believed it. And now no one actually wants to be able to fix it and says, I don't want to even debate it. I don't want to discuss it. We have to decide as Republicans, what are we going to actually do about the border? Leave it open or actually leave it closed?
Here is what
we are working through it. We have about 50 pages more to go, but from what we can tell, and I'm going to put forth a statement once we finish reading the bill, the measures that we feel are extremely undesirable, that keep our border open, that water down the asylum system. It's not good for the country.
Well, they say
quite
exactly
frankly.
the opposite. That's why I'm asking. And obviously Senator Langford and his colleagues, worked hard to negotiate something. It's hard to do some actual negotiation, and they say no new asylum claims would be allowed. Anybody crossing would be removed.
Based on
over this Benford. Hold on.
Yeah.
And he said, it ends the whole idea of I made it to U.S. soil and now you have to process me. It increases detention beds, doubles the deportation flights, and adds $650 million to expand the border wall, which is the same language and funding that's in H.R. 2. So, isn't getting something better than getting nothing? Because this problem isn't going away.
No.
Some of them may have policy differences. Some of them have been very clear with me. They have political differences with the bill. They say it's the wrong time to solve the problem, or let the presidential election solve this problem. In fact, I had a popular commentator 4 weeks ago that I talked to that told me flat out before they knew any of the contents of the bill, nothing was out at that point, that told me flat out, if you try to move a bill that solves the border crisis during this presidential year, I will do whatever I can to destroy you. Because I do not want you to solve this during the presidential election. By the way, they have been faithful to their promise and have done everything they can to destroy me in the past several weeks.
This week on Marjorie Taylor Greene because what? She wants to impeach somebody. And don't even get me started on her absurd censure resolution of Congresswoman Omar that she introduced because she doesn't know how to use Google Translate. We could be actually debating and voting on a border security package, but we can't because Marjorie Taylor Greene is in charge and Speaker Mike Johnson is terrified of her and her MAGA extremist friends. And we all saw how good that worked out for the last guy. Her whole legislative agenda is revenge, retaliation, and impeachment. She's introduced, get this, 20 pieces of legislation in this Congress, 20, and 10 of them are to impeach or censure people she doesn't like. Half of her legislation that she's introduced is about impeachment and censure. And to see this committee, to see this institution be so totally perverted by this garbage, it makes me sad. It should not.
Are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in democracy? Do we believe in opportunity for all? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you all.
On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 216. The resolution is not adopted. For what purpose?
Wondered, wouldn't it have been nice to still have Kevin McCarthy in the House of Representatives? Never thought you'd hear me say that, but Kevin McCarthy, after being dislodged as Speaker, took his marbles and went home. He would have been a reliable vote for impeachment, but if he wasn't Speaker, he wasn't willing to stick around. And I think that the errant expulsion of Santos and the abject selfishness of Kevin McCarthy contributed to this result. Trust me, Blake Moore wants Mayorkas impeached. But I got to tell you, Bowling, as I'm watching that board and it's 215 to 215, I have never missed George Santos more. And what irony that the New York Republicans who drove Santos out of Congress, who are watching the children in their state being driven out of schools so that those schools can become migrant housing centers, that now we don't get to execute on an impeachment trial of Mayorkas.
Are. If we're the purported victim in Congress and we're saying this was not an insurrection, I think that would hold a great deal of weight. Yes.
On that, you said a few months ago that you wanted to see a bipartisan agreement on border security and additional aid to Ukraine. Senators said that they did that. So why the reversal now? And if the Senate deal is dead here in the House, what is the path forward on additional aid to Ukraine?
I just explained at the outset here that they actually did not do what you just said we were expecting and had hoped. They did not send us a border security measure. They didn't. They sent us a supplemental funding proposal that has immigration reform, but not real border security reform, and so that's why it's a non-starter. They did not fulfill the requirements and the needs of the country, and that's why we have a responsibility to do something different. We'll talk about the Ukraine measure going forward. That's not been abandoned, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done with regard to what the answers that the White House needs to provide us: endgame, strategy, accountability for the funding. All of these very specific details that the House is required to consider when we make such heavy decisions.